And I realized through the journey that I have to exercise every day if I want to maintain my mental wellness. It is crucial.
Yeah.
It is a stress reliever. It helps me to stay happy and have mental clarity. And if this is what it takes to be happy, that I just have to move my body for at least 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to do it.
I love that.
That's kind of where I am right now.
Yes, I love that. Greetings and welcome to the Elevated Flo podcast. I'm your host, Coach Flo, aka the Black Rowing Queen. The Elevated Flo podcast spotlights elite and everyday female athletes over 40 sharing how they elevate their game and their flow in sports, wellness, and life. These are powerful stories of strength, resilience, wisdom, and inspiration to help women stay strong, age strong, and pass the torch to the next generation. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Please help me welcome Miss Quanisha Green. Hello, Miss Green. How are you
Thank-
today?
Hi, Coach Flo. I am well. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for saying yes to sharing your story with my audience. Well, let's get right into it. Well, let me give a formal introduction. Ms. Quanisha Green is a seasoned leadership strategist, entrepreneur, and advocate for women's empowerment who has spent her career helping others find their voice, purpose, and power. In 2023, she turned that same intentionality inward, embarking on a transformative health and fitness journey to reclaim her own vitality. Since then, Quanisha has lost over 85 pounds and maintained a streak of daily movement that now exceeds a full year. What began as a decision to take charge of her health has evolved into a powerful practice of strength, resilience, and self trust. Through this journey, she's discovered that leadership doesn't just happen in boardrooms, but it's built in daily choices to honor yourself and show up with intention. Quanisha's story is one of radical accountability and self love. She shows how the same principles that drive effective leadership, vision, consistency, and courage can also transform the body and mind. Her journey reminds us that wellness isn't just about perfection, but persistence, that reclaiming one's health can be a profound act of liberation. Whether she's supporting leaders or celebrating another day of movement, Quanisha embodies what it means to lead with purpose, grace, and grit one day at a time. Welcome, Miss Quanisha Green.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so Miss Quanisha Green, let's get into it. How do you
Yes.
describe what you do today as a leader, athlete, and advocate for women's empowerment?
How do I describe what I do? For a number of years, I ran my own business called Black Women CEO. And the same principles that I use to be an entrepreneur, that self-leadership, commitment, discipline, dedication, I had to turn it inward and bring it to myself. So I still support leaders by now working at a graduate school of social work, leading the Center for Professional Development. But I had to take a lot of those lessons and say, like, okay, are you happy with your life and how you're leading your own self, and apply that to my health and wellness so that I could, achieve goals and achieve a healthier lifestyle?
Okay. So, what helped you stand out as a woman who leads both professionally and personally through wellness and movement?
What helps me stand out is that I'm someone that when I make a commitment, I honor it and I stick to it. A lot of people like to talk about finding their motivation, and I don't believe in motivation. Motivation is fickle. So when I make a commitment, I really try to, depending on whatever the parameters are of that commitment, but to me it's an everyday commitment, and that's my discipline is, focusing on commitment, following through, and sticking to whatever goals that I set for myself so that I can achieve.
That is so true as far as motivation being fickle because, a lot of people need accountability, which I think is wonderful. And some people do let motivation keep them from doing things. But I love the fact that you said you've made a commitment. And I'm sure you probably have someone that holds you accountable to it as well, whether it's, you just writing it down and posting it. Do you have someone that you can trust that you feel like when you do make that commitment that you can turn to hold you accountable?
Yeah, well, first, I count on a lot of self accountability, but I definitely have my moments. And so I definitely believe in creating a team for yourself for success. So, one of the things that I did, particularly on the journey when I decided to exercise every day for a year, when I made that commitment in October 2024, within a week, I hired a coach. So, I hired a fitness coach and trainer who also was certified in nutrition
Mm,
to really make sure that it was a sustainable effort that I was making, because as you know, it's easy to overtrain and overdo it and injure yourself depending on what you're doing every day when you make a commitment like that. My husband, I like to call him my hype man.
mm.
So the days that I was like, I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to go exercise. He would remind me of what I was doing in my commitment. And then one of the things I did, kind of before the 1 year journey, but when I was trying to recommit to my health, I had posted on Facebook and I asked, my friends, my extensive kind of network, like, hey, who else is on a fitness journey? Who would like to be accountability partners?
Mm.
So I have as a trio, I call us a trio. There's three of us that we check in almost daily around. We're all on a fitness journey. So that also was a source of support on this journey. And then I also made a daily commitment, and I kind of did this back in 2023 when I was doing 75 hard, which I'm happy to explain what that is. That fitness program I posted every day. So that was something that I made a commitment to, that I was going to post, do a daily story, and then also kind of journal the journey as I went along as another source of accountability to, I guess, my network and the public, the
Right,
larger
right.
public, in that respect. So I put in multiple layers of kind of accountability there to make sure that on the days where I wasn't kind of feeling committed or questioning, why am I doing this to myself? I had kind of check-in points to make sure that I could keep going.
And love the first thing you said is that you hired a coach. Now, being a leader and leading women and leading teams already, coaches need coaches too. Leaders need someone that they
Yes.
can follow as well. And that really, really does help with your journey and your goals and you actually accomplishing them. So I love that. What's one principle of your leadership work that also shows up in your fitness and wellness journey?
Let's see. I guess one principle that shows up is that I often ask people, especially when I was a business coach, are you a finisher? Because there are a lot of people who are starters. They'll get all excited about the start and
Right.
the newness or something. But are you committed, once again, to being a finisher? And that is an identity that I take on, that I'm a finisher. So, those are things that when I was having challenges, or even though I don't kind of stick to motivation, but my motivation was low, or I'm questioning, why am I doing this to myself? That's actually the question that came up more often, like, why am I doing this to myself? That question came in. Are you a finisher? Are you going to
Mm.
finish this? Are you going to hit start, press play, and do your workout for today? Are you going to show up again tomorrow, right? And the day after that. So that helped with that perseverance. So that value of being a finisher and identifying that way really supported me on this journey.
When you hired your coach, and what was your initial goal in hiring? You said you wanted to make sure that you continued and you finished, but now it's been well over a year that you've been exercising daily. Two questions with that. When you hired the coach, what was your initial goal? And then did your coach talk to you about what you should be doing every day? Because we want to make sure we um program in rest and recovery. So what did that program look like, being that you exercise every single day for over a year?
Yeah, so my coach and I were Facebook friends, and she was doing a challenge around the time when I started this 1 year journey. And actually, the challenge had passed, and I was up for like 3 hours and watched all the replays from her like 3 day challenge. And it helped me to realize that, health and fitness is not my area of expertise. And I really believe in investing in yourself through investing in experts.
Absolutely.
And so the process that she laid out wasn't just one of like, oh, here's a fitness regimen and do it. It was like a three-pronged process of fitness, nutrition, and mindset. And I realized that one, I was definitely missing the nutrition. So although I did that program 75 hard where you exercise like twice a day for 75 days, you follow a diet, you drink a gallon of water a day, I forget what else, no alcohol. And I think there's like 5 rules that I followed and I successfully completed it. I had a big rebound. Like I
Mm,
went on a major emotional eating and I gained like 20 pounds back of the weight that I lost.
uh-huh.
And I didn't want to do that again. So that was in like fall of 2023. And I was like, okay, that was not, it's not a program that's meant to be sustainable. It's for mental toughness. So I
Wow.
was like, okay, I developed my mental toughness. I can exercise, every day for 75 days, but how do I actually make this sustainable? When she kind of outlined her three-prong approach, I realized that food was a source of strain in my life. Like I started emotionally eating around having mental health challenges in my 20s. Most of my weight gain has been a result of emotional eating. And I realized that I needed to work on some mindset pieces. How do I actually show up every day for myself and have a healthy approach? And then once again, how do I have something that's sustainable? So she wasn't just a fitness coach, she particularly was a fitness coach for women, and particularly middle-aged women. So, being newly 40 at the time, now I'm 41, I was like, my body's totally different than when I was in my 20s and, dancing every day and doing sports and those kind of things like that. I'm like, so how do I actually address the body and that I have now? And so one thing that we set out to do was that I did resistance training 4 times a week.
So,
And then I would do power walking twice a week.
okay.
Those are like my kind of active recovery days. And then I did yoga once a week. So that made up the 7 days.
Awesome.
So like she would outline my daily workouts in her training app. So I had my exercise. All I had to do was hit play. And it took me through like a 30 to 45 minute resistance training circuit.
Mhm.
Then I had my walk at home videos, my app that I would do to do my power walkings. If I didn't want to go out in the cold and exercise, I could do that. And I would walk, like do a 2 mile power walk, fitness walk. And then, I went to yoga at the Y on Sundays. It was like a gentle restorative yoga. So that was my routine
Love
for,
that.
you can say 52 weeks
Wow.
and still is
Okay.
as I've maintained the daily exercise.
Now, what part of your mental health, you said that you initially started it because the overeating with the mental health issues. Can you share a little bit more about what about that you felt like you needed to change now that you're middle aged?
Sure. Yeah. So I live with bipolar disorder and I have like a history of PTSD and those kind of things like that. And so if you don't know about bipolar disorder, it's a mood disorder where you could have like extremely, like weeks, almost sometimes months, experiences of like depressive episodes. And then you can also have the opposite. Some people have mania. I don't experience mania. I experience like hypomania where I can get like hyper focused. Sometimes I've been up for like 36 hours working on a project and then I crash and then can't get out of bed for 2 or 3
Oh,
days.
wow.
And so, I got diagnosed around the time when I was about 20,
Mhm.
21, and I also got diagnosed with anxiety disorder around that time. That was part of the bipolar disorder. And so I turned to food as a comfort mechanism. So while my mind is racing, I'm sitting there munching on chips. Like, you know how some people smoke cigarettes when they're stressed?
Right.
I turn to chips and ice cream and food. And so when my mental health is not the best, I turn to food as a coping mechanism.
Mm.
And so when you have a lot of periods of instability, then the food, I'm turning to food, turning to food, turning to food. And then I'm also not exercising or doing other wellness things that could be a source of stress relief. So then, you gain weight because you're eating in excess and overeating in that way. And so that was kind of like the mental health piece and how it connected to my wellness in that way.
So what changes that have you seen in your mental health as a result of you incorporating fitness? Because I know there are hormones that are excreted because of us exercising and everything.
Yes. So there's a lot of different things that I realized about fitness for myself that, I was an athlete and I danced most of my life. And then I rode when I was in high school. So I was a varsity athlete and we had sports every single day. So each season it was a different sport. It might have been dance, step team, rowing. Because some people ask me, like, "Do you think you had bipolar before you were 20?" I said, "I think it worsened, but I definitely think I had mental health issues, like depression and different things." And I used to feel like a release of stress every time I would row. Like, you hit the oar and it comes in, and I was just feel this release of, like, the day was just being released as I went. And so I remember those instances of, like, exercise being therapeutic for me. So as I got back on this one-year journey in 2024, as I started doing the resistance training and lifting and doing lunges and squats, I that feeling came back of, like, the release of the stress from the day. And then you have that endorphin rush, that natural hormonal rush that happens when you're exercising. And I literally went through the winter of 2024 into 2025 without any seasonal depression. It
That's
wasn't a day I
awesome.
was down. And I was happy. Like, I used to tell people that if normal is here, I guess if the audio, if you're listening to the audio, let's say there was a line where normal is, I lived like 2 levels below normal, and, like, I called it the gray area.
Okay.
That was, like, my normal everyday existence, and the daily exercise put me in the happy place. So, let's say normal is happy, like, most people kinda walk around maybe with a positive affect to them. I started to actually feel happy every day, and I'm still like that. So, I left each workout feeling, like, proud of myself, accomplished, and then my everyday mood was happy. And then once in a while, of course, I wasn't, like, in la la land. You still have your times where you're frustrated or you're feeling a little stressed or you're like, I could use some extra sleep. So it wasn't just like all day, but I didn't have any periods of depression, which was especially very common in the winter season for me.
I can
My
imagine.
fatigue lifted that I often felt like a depressive fatigue. And so that was the biggest difference that the daily exercise brought back. And so that helped me to once again reflect on my youth. And I was like, my sports were a protective factor for me. And here I am now bringing that protective factor back. And I've been able to, as a result of that, work with my psychiatrist to actually reduce my medication that I take for actually, we took off one medication altogether, and then we reduced another medication that I take for my mood disorder, thanks to the daily exercise.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. So, speaking of which, I love the fact that you said that you saw sports and activity as a protective measure, protective
Mhm.
activity. At what age, thinking back, what age did you start playing a sport?
Yeah, I started dancing. I did African dance, and a lot of other different modalities of dance starting in 4th grade. It was an after school activity. So I did African dance and we did performances at school. We once performed at the Apollo. So that was, and I think I had that dance class like 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
And so that was my sport. And then in the summer times, like around the community center and those activities, like those summer camp activities. I did step team and those kind of things like that. But dance was my sport growing up. And then for high school, I went away to boarding school. I went to Phillips Academy, Andover, and we were required to do a sport. So everyone, either it was a competitive sport or I think they called it intramural, where
Mhm.
you kind of just, you don't compete against anyone. So, like, some people would do, like, walking or jogging because you had to do some type of physical activity, and I went to the, kinda open house for rowing freshman, fall, and I just fell in love with rowing, and so that was my fall and spring sport, and in the winter, I did step team, and then I took also still took dance classes. I was very active in high school, and those different kind of things. And then by my senior year, I was on varsity rowing. So I was on the varsity team. thanks to, improving as I went along over the years and staying committed to rowing for those 4 years. So, yeah, I started kinda in grade school and just continued on, and then when I went to college, I started rowing, and then I decided that I wanted to focus on dance. So I focused on dance in college, and so I had practice a couple of times a week with that in my hip hop dance.
Well, I love that the fact that you are a rower. We connected on that after I asked you to be on the
Yes,
podcast, and I love, and I've talked about this and talk about this often. I love the fact that you referred to dancing as your sport of choice when you were growing up. Because I was a dancer and I don't necessarily remember them saying that dance was a sport. And I know we talked about that. Like, if you see yourself as an athlete, and hopefully dancers nowadays, they are
yes.
categorizing that as a sport. So that's awesome. And hearing about your rowing background. And so when you started rowing, I have a middle school girl that I was coaching last year, and she went to high school and she went to boarding school. That's a whole nother conversation, because when I talked to her
Yes,
mom about, like, how did she get to boarding school, she's like, yeah, in the Black community, we think of boarding school as sending the bad kids off, and that
yes.
type of thing. So that, like I said, that's a whole nother story. But the fact that you chose rowing, what about it, when you went to this introduction, did you feel like this is something that I think I would want to do?
Yeah, I always loved water, and I've always found it
Yeah.
relaxing, so I think that was part of the attraction. And then, it's hard to think back because this is like 20 years now, probably actually more than that, like 25 years now. And so in preparation for this, I was trying to think back, but I'm like, I remember walking to the bus and then going to the boathouse, but I couldn't kind of tap into whatever the feelings were at the time. But just and thinking about rowing in general, like, I love the motion
Yeah.
of being in the boat and the gliding in the water and feeling the oar, when you used to row, as you go through that motion and the rhythm of it.
Right.
And so I think that's why I stuck with it all 4 years because and I'm competitive too,
Yeah.
so we were a competitive team, so I like to win. And yeah, so just like the rhythm, the motions, being on the water, being out there, even days when it was raining and you're like, why are we out here in the rain?
Right.
Like it still was, I still enjoyed practice and the sisterhood that
Absolutely.
formed. You have different type of rowing configurations and we rowed in eights. So we had 8 people in a boat. And I was in different positions over the 4 years. I was the second seat, so I was in the front, then I was in the power seats, kinda in the middle. And then the relationships that was formed with my fellow rowers,
Mhm.
some of these are still my best friends to
Yeah.
this day. And the connection you build kind of rowing as a unit, so that teamwork that you learn. So I think it fed me in so many different levels. So the social aspect of the teamwork, the physical aspect of being challenged every day with your endurance and your strength.
Right.
And then I think the mental aspect of being on the water and the gliding and getting in the zone and challenging yourself. So I think all those different aspects of it kind of contribute to my love for the sport.
You keep saying some of those key words that I like to talk about on the podcast, and we're gonna talk about that a little later, about getting into the zone. But before we get to that, what are some early experiences about being active in sports that have taught what have they taught you about yourself, both as an athlete and as a young woman?
Yeah, I think, and this is something I tapped into often during my daily exercise journey, was that I can do hard things.
Mhm. Yes.
Through both dance and rowing. When my rowing coach particularly would often say, "You're going to hit a wall, and you have to learn how to get over the wall." She's like, "You're going to hit a point where you wanna stop, where your body's aching, where everything hurts, and you're questioning, like, 'Why am I doing this?' And you have to learn how to break through the wall." That's how she would talk about it. And, of course, it's all abstract until you actually experience it. You're like, "Oh my gosh, that was the wall. I got over the wall." And then I was able to take that, and I was like, "Oh, I experienced this in dance too," where you're just like, especially African dance, which is very vigorous. Right? And you're like, okay, especially in a performance where you're like, I am tired. I am giving this my all. I'm giving it my 200% and I'm performing for this audience and your body is aching and you're just like, I want to stop, but I have 8 more counts to
Right,
do
right.
for, for my part in this. And so I think a lot of the mental aspect of sports is something that I kind of developed over, in my youth that supported me through my journey. So definitely the days when I wanted to not work out, not press play, because I work out in the afternoons. I don't like working out in the morning. Like it's just I'm not a morning person. So
Okay.
the morning's too overwhelming for me. And so, but in the afternoon, after you worked a full day, and then I would come immediately home, change my clothes, start my workout. And I'm like, I am tired. But it's like, so I was kind of like at the point where you just want to give up
Right.
or you don't even want to initiate. And it's just like, nope, this is the wall. You know how to get through this.
Right.
Press play, take one step at a time, one rep at a time, right? And just work through it.
I love that you said talking about hitting that wall or that you can do hard things. That's one of the affirmations or motivation, the inspiration, whatever you want to call it, that we would say to our rowers. Like, you can do hard things.
Hmm.
Those are some things that you have to say to yourself. Like, you can do hard things. And like you said, it does. And it can carry over into other aspects of your life. It's funny too.
Yes.
I have that background in African dance, and it was, maybe I was in my 30s when I did a performance, and, the jerking and the whole 9,
Yeah.
and I did that, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Afterwards, that next day, I could barely, like, turn my head in the bed. I was like, "Oh my goodness," like, and I was like, "Okay, that was my retirement performance." After that, I was like, "I'm done with dance." Like, I could do it for fun, but performing, I'm good. So we have that
Yeah.
background, similar background, and then also I see you got the red memo. For some reason, when I put on the red shirt today, I was like, "She's gonna end up wearing red." I just kinda felt like,
That's
yeah.
funny.
Anyway,
Yes. Not planned.
not planned at all. So, talking about your daily movement and identity shift, when did movement at what part in this journey did it become who you are rather than just something that you do?
Yeah. I think one of my whys was that when I started the daily exercise in October 24, my why was that I wanted to reconnect with the Quanisha who loved movement. So a part of me saw I don't want to say old identity, maybe my younger identity, like the athlete, the young athlete, young dancer as someone who loved to move. And I grew up in New York City, so I would walk everywhere. And I don't think at the time I didn't identify like, oh, I'm a mover.
Yeah,
I like to move my body. My body was what I danced. I did all these things. I was physically active. So, as an adult and going through, decades almost of not engaging in physical activity, I was able to reflect and was like, I really enjoyed movement. Like it was just something that was a part of who I was, and not having that, you notice the disconnect.
yeah.
And so that was my why, was to revive that love for movement. And it almost happened instantaneously, like working with my trainer and her in those first couple of workouts that she gave me. It was like muscle memory almost. I was like, my body remembers this. I remember doing squats and lunges and crunches and all these kind of things like that. And it was, yeah, I guess muscle memory is the best way to describe it, because it was like it all came flooding back.
Mm,
And looking forward to each day, the exercise that she outlined for me, or even the days that I walked, it was just like, this is familiar. I know this. This is me.
yeah.
And then she gave us the challenge one day to her community to think of an identity. And my identity that I took on was that of an athlete. I was like, I'm an
I
athlete.
love it.
These daily exercise, this is my
Yes.
training. I wasn't training for anything specifically, but I saw it as training. And so it also helped me to tap back into, once again, that youth, that Quanisha for youth that was an athlete, right? I'm like, I know this. So all that training and the mindset and the coaching that I received in my youth, all those things came flooding back, and the love for movement came flooding back, and feeling my body like that again. So it was just like, I like to say, how I describe this is that I became my old self, but at 41 I'm also becoming a newer self, like a
Mm,
new woman,
right,
and re-engaging in my fitness. So it's not so much going backwards, but it's bringing back something that's familiar,
right,
but creating something new out of it at the same time.
right. Was there anything along the journey? I know you said that I mean, it felt familiar, but was there anything that you learned about yourself or the movement itself that surprised you?
I think the biggest thing that surprised me is how well I can do lunges.
Okay, so those knees not
My
that
coach
old
gave
yet, huh?
me
No.
I know. My coach gave me all types of lunges, forward lunges, reverse lunges, curtsy lunges. And then I started to feel so lunges, everyone is like when you're kneeling down,
Right.
you taking one leg and you're kneeling down. And I couldn't put my knee on the floor. Like that's how much of a struggle. Like I can only like go a quarter of a way and halfway. And so when I was able to get my knee on the floor, I was like, you got this. Look at this. And so I do lunges very well right now with good form. I even had a physical therapist tell me, "Oh, you got really excellent form." I was like, "Thank you. I've been practicing for a year."
Awesome.
So that surprised me, my strength. One of the things growing up, something that my brother's father always told me, he was like, "You're a naturally strong girl.
Mm,
Like you're strong." And so doing the lunges and doing the particularly the resistance training made me feel strong again. I was like, that strength is still there. That muscle memory is still there. I'm still strong and I'm getting stronger as I engage in these movements. So I was able to pay attention to the details like my knee is going down, lower. I can now touch the mat. I can lift a heavier weight. I'm going to challenge myself and go up the next five
right.
pounds. So those little things started to kind of come more to my consciousness as I went along with the movement.
Okay. No, before you said when you were doing the 75, was it hard
Oh, 75 hard,
75 hard.
75
You were
hard,
saying
yeah.
that you were posting every day and you had people holding you accountable because that was a specific challenge. What about this journey have you shared and how have you helped other people through your journey this over the last year? Have you shared it online? I know that I saw one of your posts when you were talking about you got a promotion at work. And so that was kind of, you felt like a result of rather you having better mental health and, feeling better about yourself and everything. How have you shared your journey with other
Yeah.
people and helped them?
Yeah, so when I started on this path of just trying to get healthy, I did 75 hard in 2023, like the fall. But I would post like because there's an app, like I would post the app, like, oh, it's day 52. But I didn't really, and I would share some pictures depending on if I was walking outside. But it was more just for me. Like it was depending on self accountability. Like I didn't create that team like I did for this daily exercise. So when I started the daily exercise, like I said, I had a coach, I had my accountability partners, my husband, even my kids checked on me. They would say, "Mommy, what day are you on?"
Mhm.
Or, "Mommy, did you do your workout today?" When I would say, "Yes, I did. I did it this afternoon." So I had all these little sources of accountability. But what I started to do a little differently was that I kind of journaled my journey
Okay.
as I went along. So I talked about the challenges with eating and following a nutrition plan and having cravings, wanting to emotionally eat, but turning to do my workout instead of turning to a bag of chips. I talked about the days when I didn't want to work out and what helped me to actually press
Mhm.
play, right? I took comparison pictures. I would share that online. Here I was, here's my day one. I actually created a post every 30 days,
Okay.
celebrating
Okay.
too. So it was like, hey, it's day 60, it's day 90. So I would do a celebratory post. And so a lot of my network would comment, they're like, oh, this is an inspiration, or you inspired me to hire a trainer now.
Awesome.
And I would tag my trainer in some of the posts. Almost, weekly, I definitely wrote about maybe I would say about 2 to 3 posts a week
Okay.
related to my journey, kinda like a journaling exercise, but sharing kinda like the intimate parts of it. And every day I would also post to my stories a picture of me and what day I was on and what I did for my workout that day, as a way to track as I went along.
Okay. And what other kind of feedback or inspiration did you get or people telling you how they inspired you from doing that? Did you get any I know before you had a podcast and you said you're an entrepreneur, did you get any people that wanted to work with you or how did that play out?
Yes, I actually closed my business before I started this
Oh,
journey, and
okay.
it was act and so I went back to traditional work back in 2023.
Okay.
And going back to traditional work is actually what helped me to focus on my health, to have the
Mm,
time to do something like 75 hard and to pay attention to my health. Because I was a awful well, I wouldn't I wasn't an awful entrepreneur in the sense of not making any money. I made money because I was an entrepreneur for like 8 years and I took care of myself. But I was an awful entrepreneur in terms of self-care.
Mm,
And the funny thing is, I started my business so that I could focus on self-care and totally didn't do it.
wow.
Because the entrepreneurship triggered my bipolar in different ways. So, like, I would get hyped.
No.
It did. It did, like, I would get overexcited, and I would stay up for 36 hours working on, like, a sales page and funnels and all these things related to, like, marketing or selling
Right,
something. So, it didn't lend itself for me. I'm not saying that's true for
right.
everybody, but for me, it didn't lend itself to healthy, and I would, like, eat a lot of fast food and work at odd hours of the night, um so yeah, I didn't take very good care of myself. So one of the reasons I went back to traditional work was for the stability
Okay,
and so that I could focus on my health. So I was able to do that working for myself. The things so it didn't lead to clients or anything because I wasn't doing it for that reason. But it did lead to other people starting fitness
mhm.
journeys, other people hiring
That's
trainers.
awesome.
I know about 4 women who specifically hired my trainer
Okay, that's awesome.
to support them on their health journey, and then also to eating well.
Mhm.
Some people hired, or kinda through their insurance got approved for, like, registered dietitians,
Okay,
so, they would comment and say, "Quanisha, because of you, I did this today, and this is what I'm working
I love
on."
that.
And then I would just ask people, like, I may share a challenge and say, like, "What are your thoughts?" So they also got to sometimes share their expertise because a lot of my network is kind of from when I was an entrepreneur. So I have a lot of coaches, like people who are life coaches or health coaches
Mhm.
in my network. So they would share sometimes their expertise, like, "Oh, here's what I've tried," or "Have you considered this?" Or "Yeah, your mindset around this. Here's how you can reframe that."
Mm.
So I would get kind of like unofficial coaching by sharing my challenges. So yeah, so it became like a supportive, encouraging
I
experience,
love
not just for
that.
me, but
Yeah.
for the folks who were kind of following my journey.
That's awesome. It's kind of sucks to hear that, you started your entrepreneurship journey to focus on self-care and it kind of went the opposite way. But that's
Yeah.
beautiful that you were able to understand that and say, you know what, I need to turn from this. I mean, who's to say? Maybe now that everything is better, you might want to explore it again in the future. Who knows?
Yeah.
Speaking of self care, is there a habit or a self care routine that you use on a regular basis to help you sustain your mental health and wellness journey?
I would say now it's the
Okay,
exercise. I hit 365 days on October 20th, 2025.
that's amazing. Congratulations.
So as of this recording, I'm now at today is going to be day 380.
Wow. Wow.
Once I complete my exercise this afternoon. And I realized through the journey that I have to exercise every day if I want to maintain my mental wellness. It is crucial.
Yeah.
It is a stress reliever. It helps me to stay happy and have mental clarity. And so, even if I'm not eating well, I've had way too much Chinese food probably in the last month. And I need to get back to my nutrition plan, but I maintain my daily exercise.
That's awesome.
And it doesn't have to be one of the things, and when you asked me earlier about sustainability, at a minimum, I have to do at least 10 to 15 minutes of exercise. So that was another
Yes.
thing that my trainer and I set. And so even if I'm doing a 15-minute power
Yeah.
walk or a 20-minute yoga video, something has to be done every day. And so I don't even want to test what will happen if I don't work out for the day. That's why I haven't broken my streak yet because I feel so well.
Yeah.
So if this is what it takes to be happy, that I just have to move my body for at least 10 to 15 minutes, Imma do it.
I love that.
That's kind of where
Right.
I am right now.
Yes, I love that. There's two
Yes.
things that you said that I wanted to point out. Yes, it can take just 15 to 20 minutes. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I don't have time to work out. And they're thinking, oh, I got to go to the gym. I got to spend 45 minutes to an hour. And no, that is the perfect example. It can only Take 10 to 15 minutes every day. Just move your body.
If you're listening right now and you're thinking, Coach Flo, I know I need to get moving, but I don't know where to start. Or you've been moving, but you feel stuck. Maybe you hit a plateau. This message is for you. I created a 21-day Get Active, Stay Active challenge just for women like you. It's simple, it doesn't take much time, and it's doable even if you can only work out at home. This challenge is designed not only to help you build strength and momentum, it's designed to build confidence and consistency without feeling overwhelmed. Every day, you'll get clear guidance and small, powerful steps that add up to big results. By the end of the 21 days, you'll not only feel stronger, you'll know exactly how to keep going. So if you're ready to take that step, join me. Click the link in the description to join the challenge. Your future self will thank you for it. Now let's get back to the episode.
I coined a phrase,
Yes.
the more you move. Well, I don't know why I always mess it up. The more you move, the longer you'll be able to move. And it's so true
Ooh, I like
because it's
that.
like, you just have to move your body. That's what our bodies are meant for. Even with strength training, it's like you got to incorporate some strength training as we get older, we lose bone density. All of that stuff is important. Our bodies were made for movement. I have a friend that talks about exercise is not for me. And it's like, no, exercise is for everybody. Like,
No.
I would hate for
Yes, our
something to,
bodies are meant to
right.
move.
Don't get to the point where the doctor tells you you have to move or else. Our
Yes,
bodies are meant to
yes,
move. And then the other point that you made that is really important is you have to choose what time of day works for you. Some people feel like, oh, they have to work out in the morning, but they go to work too early. So that's why they can't work out. Finding excuses. And it's the same thing with the type of workout that you do. You have to find what you like. And then you also have to figure out which time of day works best for you. Some people, they're so tired after work, it's like, no, nothing's going to happen but sleep. So you work out in the morning. But you basically have to find which time works for you and then what kind of exercise works for you. But you gotta move your body every day, and I love the fact that you said, "I don't even
yes,
wanna know what it's like to not do it," because you like being
yes.
happy. I love that. Alright, so we're gonna move into mindset resilience and self-leadership. We've touched on it already, but I just wanna ask you, what does self-leadership look like to you in your daily life now?
Yeah, I think the self-leadership for me is we kinda talked about it at the top of the podcast, is the
Yeah.
commitment piece, and this is something that I developed being an entrepreneur, like,
Oh,
once again, not depending on motivation because motivation is fickle.
right.
Motivation will have you staying cuddled up, at least when it comes to fitness. You'll stay cuddled up in the bed under your blanket, binge watching
Right.
Netflix. You're like, "I'm not getting out of this bed." The self-leadership is I made a commitment.
Right.
And so the same way that if you made a commitment to your children being healthy, you're going to take them to the doctor. You're going to make sure that they're fed. You're going to make sure that you give them hugs for their mental health
Right.
and, that they're well and all these things like that. That same commitment that I make to other or our work. We go to work even when we're feeling tired and we have a headache and because we're committed to getting a paycheck, right? Or fulfilling a mission or, whatever work satisfies for you that same commitment that I can extend to other things, I extend it to myself. Right. And I learned that as an entrepreneur, how to be committed to my business and my mission. And I'm like, now I am the mission.
I
I
love
am the
that.
business.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so I'm committed to my health. So the things that I need to do, whether it's hitting my protein goal for the day or, making sure I do my daily workout or some type of movement, doing what's planned, not following my mood and how I'm
Right.
feeling, right? To me, that's the self leadership there and continuing to tap into my why. Like I said, that why was how can I revive the Quanisha who loves movement? And one another way I tap into that why, I create comparison pics all the time. I'm like, I don't want to go back. So let me go look at that Quanisha from a year ago. Let me go look at that Quanisha from 3 months ago because we ain't going back there.
Mhm.
Right. So I put things in place and people in place so that when I feel like not so much my commitment is waning, but I guess motivation is waning or desire is waning I know I have things I can tap into to make sure I get up and go press play on the video, right? I get up and go on that walk
Right.
or whatever it is to maintain the daily commitment. And I'm also highly committed to my streak.
Mhm.
One thing to me about self-leadership is putting things in place that will help you to be successful. So that tracking and publicly sharing my streak
Yeah.
every day or like what exercise day am I on, that I'm highly committed to maintaining.
That.
And so that's another thing that keeps me motivated is that like, they always sometimes people say, keep a calendar and X out the day that you're on, but me writing the number
Yeah.
like 300 something something day or whatever it is, I'm very like clear on that. I want to maintain that.
That's awesome. So you said today after your workout, there'll be 380 days. Did you have any
Yes.
challenges or setbacks? I know you haven't broken your streak, but I know that you said that there are days where you didn't feel like getting up. What kind of challenges or setbacks did you have and how did you break through those aside from your husband saying, get out of bed and go do what you got to do?
Yeah, so me changing my eating allowed my family to change the way that they were eating. So we ate out a lot and a lot of that was kind of spurred by me because I would have second shift as I would call it where I would do the school pickup and kind of feeding the children and whether it was because I was depressed or tired, I don't like cooking either. So it's not something I look forward to. I'm like, oh, let's get McDonald's. Let's go get Wendy's. Let's go. So we ate a lot of takeout just out of
Mhm.
convenience and depending on whatever the stimulus for that convenience
Right.
was, right? It could be, like I said, it could have been a few things. And so I started cooking more
Mm.
when and the cooking because of the way how my coach supported me it didn't feel hard it wasn't anxiety
Oh,
provoking so
that's
it was
good.
actually something I started to look forward to. I was trying new recipes and trying out different ways of eating. I ate a lot of salads, different proteins with salads and it led to my one of my old my I have two sons, one's 13, one's 9. My 13-year-old like really started to love the salads too, so he started eating more vegetables and greens, and also my husband, he'd be like, "Can you fix me a salad as well?" So we started eating more
I love
vegetables and
that.
more greens and more variety. I have a household of picky eaters.
Okay.
So it expanded our menu as well as
Mm,
different things that we would try and different approaches to take. So yeah, so it definitely changed how we all started to think about food and address food and what we bought from the supermarket and those kind of things like that. And think about convenience differently too. It was no longer turning to necessarily takeout or McDonald's or fast food and those kind of things. It was like, okay, well, what could we whip up really fast? Or let me buy some healthy frozen meals, right? So that I had that to take for lunch if I didn't want to cook or wanted some variety and those kind of things like that. It definitely made a difference for myself, my kids, and my husband.
love that. I love that because I believe that the mother or the person that is responsible for cooking, once they change their habits and they teach those things to their children, they really do set them up for not continuing to repeat that bad way of eating and the traditions that we have in our families. Because, when I went to school for nutrition, my very first nutrition class, and I found out that type 2 diabetes was not hereditary, I was like, really? It's like,
Mm,
okay, type 1, different. Type 2 is basically because of what you eat. And that tradition of the way that we eat in our families is the reason that type 2 diabetes continues in families. So when I found that out, it's like, okay, once you're able to get a hold of the person that is responsible for cooking and developing those traditions in families, you won't have that repeat of or that disease continuing in the family. So I love that your family got on
yes,
board with that. All right.
yes.
So we're going to, before we wind down to our last segment, which is our passing the torch, I just want to let people know that I have a private Patreon group where we're going to go a little bit deeper personally and maybe get some laughs in. So if you want to join the Patreon community and come to our, what we call the afterflow, they call in church the overflow. You want the overflow? You got to come to the afterflow to get a little bit more personal with Quanisha. So you can click the link in the description and join the Patreon community. So now for our last pass the torch, we talked about being in the flow, elevating your flow, being in your zone. When would you say that you are in your zone, whether it's working out or in work, at work? When would you say that you're in your zone?
Definitely in my zone when I'm working out. It's like I get to this point where my mind is like clear and everything, I was gonna say everything just flows
Yes, yes. In the
in
flow.
that way. But, there were days where I was like really stressed. I'm going to work out, I would have a headache and I'm tired. And then about maybe 15 minutes into the exercise, it was like my breathing would change,
Mm,
my mind would clear, the headache would go away, my body felt at ease. And I was like, there we are,
yeah.
we're in the zone. And that is something too. It doesn't happen every workout. It happens most
Okay.
workouts when I get to that point. And so that was something I look forward to regularly, especially for stress relief,
Yeah.
where it's just like a release. It's almost like the day just melts away
Mm,
and you're just present in the moment. And I only really I used to have it sometime as an entrepreneur, that's where I was up for like 36 hours because I would get in the zone and be like focused, hyper focused. That's not the healthy
right,
part. That's
right.
not the healthy flow. So exercise, having it experience that during exercise is a very healthy flow and getting in the zone in that way.
So you
So yeah,
elevate your flow when you are exercising. I love it. All
yes.
right. So passing the torch, our last segment. What would you say to your teenage self about the importance of health, movement, and caring for your mental and emotional wellness early on, and how important it is for when you get older?
Tell my younger self, keep moving. And it's the key to your sanity. Because, I would often have older women tell me,
Mm,
don't get fat, because it's hard to take it off when you get older. And that never really resonated with me.
right.
I think, and of course, now as adults, we can see that there's like fat phobia and all these things that can be wrapped up in that, even though they're trying to give you healthy advice. But I think that because I struggle with mood disorder, to say, like, if you want to keep your sanity, if
Mm,
you want to keep your mind, you have to move.
yeah.
Right? I think that if someone would have told me that when I was younger, I may have made sure I stuck to the movement and exercising and staying active, especially through the challenges when I started to really experience some of the more severe challenges with my mental health. I think I would have had that to hold on to in some
Right.
way. So I would definitely tell my younger self and tell young people, just keep moving, find a way to stay active in your life.
Absolutely. I love that. And what would you say to a older woman, maybe in her 40s or beyond, about if she feels like, oh, it's too late to get started, or someone that I know we say motivation is fickle. You said motivation is fickle, that maybe has lost their motivation. Maybe they're moving and they're just like, I'm just tired. I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I would say one is never too late to start, and that to invest in yourself through investing in support. Because I think, by the time we're in our 40s at least and then older, we probably have tried dieting and exercise in some type of way and probably not in a healthy way or followed like diet culture or like harmful workout culture or starving ourselves. So we think that we may know what it takes to shed fat and get healthy because we've tried something that worked for our 20-year-old selves or our 15-year-old selves. So I would definitely say invest in the support that you need so that for what your current self is, right? Like,
Absolutely.
if you're a 50-year-old woman going through menopause and that kind of stuff, that's a whole different body than what you're used to. So
Absolutely.
invest in the support that you need so that you can take a healthy approach to getting well. And it's never too late to start.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you, Miss Green, Quanisha Green. It has been such a joy and
Thank you, Coach
pleasure.
Flo.
Yeah, talking with you. And hopefully, women are definitely inspired by your story and the sharing that you did today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you to all the
Thank
listeners.
you. Well, everybody, that's a wrap for today. This is Coach Flo signing off. Remember to find your zone and elevate your flow. Peace.